Okay. Good evening once again. My name is Makafui, and I have the singular honor of being your host for this webinar. The theme for today is to build or to buy. So if you were to own a house today, which one would you choose? To build or to buy? As young professionals or people who aspire to be homeowners one day, this is a common question that comes up in our daily conversations on the subject of home acquisition. Some of us may have personal reservations with regards to this topic, but I believe for many of us here today, it is our hope that by the end of this webinar, we would have gathered all the relevant information to guide us in deciding whether to build or to buy. The purpose of this webinar is to keep you informed about the pros and cons of building or buying a house in Ghana. It is my hope that by the end of this webinar, we would all gain the requisite knowledge on the subject from a leading expert. Before I continue, I want to say a big thank you to all of you present at this webinar. The webinar is an initiative of SEEK International. SEEK is an organization born out of a desire to see more autodidacts, curious learners, and readers develop in Ghana and by extension, Africa. The organization operates as a knowledge hub that provides members with online and offline platforms that allow them to share knowledge about topics of interest or books. So SEEK's vision is to create communities that read, learn, and achieve together. Its mission is to empower individuals through knowledge acquisition and application. You'll find SEEK on various social media platforms such as Instagram, Telegram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Without talking much, I would introduce our resource person for today. He is in the person of Mr. Selassie Sebuafo. Selassie is a real estate and construction management professional with over a decade's worth of experience, successfully handling various roles across multiple functions in the real estate and construction industry. He started his real estate career at Rehoboth Properties Limited and is currently the acting general manager for the Oxford, a 600 housing development within Apollonia City. Selassie is also the managing director of Core Haven Ghana Limited, a landscaping and construction firm that has executed various projects across the length and breadth of the country. Selassie is a firm believer in philanthropy and currently sits on the board of the Helping Hand Initiative, an NGO that focuses on funding basic education for brilliant but needy children across the African continent. He's also the co-founder of Urban Africa Solutions Limited, a real estate consulting firm that focuses on sales growth, business development, and capital sourcing for real estate firms. You're welcome, sir. It's a great honor to have you on this webinar, Selassie.
Thank you so much, Donna. And good evening to everyone. And I'm really honored to be here. I hope I can be of tremendous help, hopefully.
Welcome everybody once again. So we have Mr. Selassie Sebuafo as our resource person. I'll kickstart with my question. So my first question is, Selassie,
yeah,
if you had to build a house today, which one would you go for?
If I had to build a house today, which one would I go for in terms of what the house, the number of bedrooms, or whether or what, or if I'm supposed to choose between building and buying?
Which one would I go for? If you had to build a house today, would you choose to build or to buy?
Okay. So the truth is that there is not a a one-size-fits-all answer for that question. So I'll break it down. Whether you choose to build or buy depends on a couple of factors. Some could be the location where you want to have your house. Sometimes it's very difficult to get land in that exact location to build your house to build, so you probably tend to buy it. The other is the convenience you're looking for. Sometimes the stress of going to chase contractors up and down and working with artisans and all those things, you might choose to buy instead of building. Sometimes also because you want something very bespoke and unique to your taste, then you can choose to buy. So it all depends on the human being, what you are looking for, right? So there's really not a build to buy fight. It's what works for you and what answers your need the most. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay. So how does mortgage financing influence people's decision to build or to buy?
Okay. So if you look at the more advanced world, right, it is the bedrock of home acquisition, where mortgages is what people use to get their homes over a 30-year period. Now, mind you, in those areas, interest rates are quite low, right? So mortgage is what they depend on, and it's quite flexible and easy for anyone who has good credit, has a very good paying job, to be able to qualify for a mortgage to buy a certain kind of house. That is supposed to be the case in Ghana and Africa at large. But unfortunately, because of different kinds of interest structures and the cost of capital to the mortgage houses, it is not really that cheap to have a mortgage, right? But in an ideal world, the mortgage would be the super solution to everybody owning a home once they have a good job, steady income, and good credit. Yeah.
Okay. But from information gathered, it looks like it is easier, like in terms of flexible payment arrangement and financing for the purchase of a home. It's easier to have flexible payment options for the purchase of a home than to build a house.
Okay. So whether you are building or you are buying, right? Free advice is that you don't sink your entire money um, into a fixed asset like a house, right? So I see people that come and even if they can afford a mortgage and you advise them, they say I don't want to owe anybody. So they take hundreds and of thousands of dollars that they have in the bank and come and buy a house. Now the thing about real estate is that it is real, it is fixed. It's not, it cannot easily be converted into cash. So if you have the cash, right? I'd rather you say instead of putting it over a payment plan, you rather go for a mortgage and buy your house, but it's the easiest mode of doing it. Because in life, anything can happen. And when you need cash the most, the thing about mortgage is that it allows you to keep your cash. Pardon me, my daughter is here. Hold on for 1 second.
That's fine.
All right, so yeah, she's gone. Right, so as against doving out cash to pay for your own house, it's best you do a mortgage system. That is probably like the best and safest thing to do. But if you have the money and you have loads and loads of it, by all means, you can also do a very nice payment plan, and that also works for you.
Okay. So with all of what you have said, it's like there's no hard and fast rule about it. So it
No,
depends on it's purely dependent on your situation. So
exactly.
what kind of factors will make it like will compel somebody to
Mhm.
buy instead of to
Yeah.
build a house? Like even though there are no hard and but like there may be some factors that will compel certain people to want to build or to buy.
Okay. So culturally as Ghanaians, we are prone or we are built we are build people. Everybody, I mean, since you are 5 or 6, you all hear is that one day you're going to go up and build your own house. It's not like buy my own house. So culturally, we are more skewed towards the building side. However, if you were to make a more scientific or probably say logical decision, it would have to be based on one, what am I looking for? What kind of community do I want to live in? Right now, some people want to live in plant gated communities that you seldom get with people that are selling plots. See that I'm doing something. Forgive me. Okay, come and take water. Hold on. Forgive me. The being of having a toddler. So yes, so like I was saying, it depends on like yes, what you're looking for. If you're looking to live in a gated community, a very planned peri-urban neighborhood, you seldom probably get that with plots. But you know how we sell plots in this country. There's a chief somewhere who has vast land in the bush somewhere, he has to cut and start selling. So if that is your focus, then you might probably be skewed towards buying. The second thing is your budget, how much you want to spend, right? How much you want to spend on your house. That's one factor as well. The third thing also is the time you have on your hands. Building sometimes takes a lot of time, depending on what you are building and the style and then the mode of construction. And if you're looking to get a house in the shortest possible time, then buying is what you probably want to do. So I can go on and go on and go on about it could probably be issues like proximity to your church or proximity to your mosque or to your children's school or to your favorite salon or whatever it is. So there are so many things that people look at as to whether they want to buy a house in a particular place or they want to build a house in that particular place.
Okay. I've got some few questions here, but we'll come back to your questions in a minute. Okay. So, do you think that buying a house is an escape route from a bureaucratic land titling and planning system in Ghana? Because I'm saying this because I'm very much aware how it can be very hectic to get your land registered, and with these issues of multiple sale and all of these, is buying a house an escape route from this kind of bureaucracy in the land titling system?
To a large extent, I'll say yes, because one of the things that developing companies such as ours sell is the fact that our houses all come with title. So when you buy your house, you don't have to go through the issue of doing trying to get a land registered and everything. Because once you do your search, you realize that the land belongs to us. So to a large extent, yes, that is the solution that the real estate companies seek to bring to the chaos when it comes to land registration. However, also it's not a one-size-fits-all approach for all developers. There are people that don't have land titles, and sometimes you go through the same hassle as in like you're buying a piece of land from somewhere. So yes, so to a large extent, yes, the idea of real estate companies was to try and clean up the mess and solve that kind of problem. But there are also a few lapses in there as well.
Okay. For most developers, they say that if you buy a house, it means that then you are involving the services of an expert. And so it is believed that everything should be done well. And then when you enter the house, there should be no defects on your house. There should be no issues at all. But then from some little background research, I'm very much aware that sometimes people buy these houses and in the first few months or in the first few years, they start developing very serious maintenance issues like plumbing issues and the rest. So what is your take on this?
Okay. So yes, so I think from this angle, anything that is man-made, right, is prone to it's not foolproof, right? Definitely there will be some issues here and there. Even if you walk to the Mercedes showroom and buy a new Mercedes car, there's always that 1% chance that you probably would drive out and your engine will just go poof. It doesn't mean that the engine wasn't built or the car wasn't built well. But when it comes to things like machines in the same as houses, they are being built by human beings. And even the best of effort to get it right, you might not always get it 100%. So sometimes there is a very thin line between what you call defects and then issues that come as a result of construction. So for example, if you build your house anywhere, there are a few things that you call like something like a hairline crack. It is not a structural crack. It is just a crack that appears as a result of plastering. And you might see it in your house and think that, oh, this house is cracking, but it's not cracking. It's just because probably the mix ratio had gone wrong somewhere, or something was happening and there's just a little hairline crack, that can easily be resolved. Sometimes you buy your house and I had it happen in my development where, I mean, everything is perfect. The day you come, you probably try and just turn the doorknob and then it goes broken. It doesn't mean that the house is defective. But also there are developers that don't do what is right and they do a lot of shoddy things as well. But there's nothing like foolproof. And I don't think any developer sets out to produce or to give out shoddy houses or substandard houses that will make their customers not very happy. Right. So yeah, so there are some defects, yes, but and the best thing is that when you're buying from a good developer, they give you what they call the defect liability period, which is usually between 6 months to 12 months. And that means that whatever happens to the house structurally within that period, the developer is obliged to come and fix it for you at no cost to you, the homeowner. So if you buy a house, there's always a defect liability period, and you shouldn't be afraid to live in the house. But if there's a crack, you call the developer, he will come. If there's a blockage in your toilet, you call him, he will come. For that period, he will come and correct everything for you.
So is it every developer that has that puts down the defect liability period?
I don't know if it's a law in Ghana, but I know in other jurisdictions, it's law that developers have that. But if you have good developers, everywhere I have worked, they've always had a defect liability period, and it ranges between 6 months to 1 year on structural damages, and sometimes 6 months for appliances that have been installed. But most developers do have a defect liability period.
Oh, that's really good. It's the first time I'm actually hearing the defect liability period. So you mentioned that if you are dealing with a good developer, then the defect liability should be included in your contractual arrangements.
Yeah.
So
and you should ask. You should even ask. If you don't see, you should ask. Is there a defect liability period? It's like warranty. If you walk to Telefonica and you buy an iPhone today, they'll give you a warranty for a period of time because it's a device. I mean, anything can happen out of no fault of yours. Now, if you were to buy a house today and all of a sudden you see that when you're bathing, the water is not going through the drain. I mean, it's no fault of yours. You did not dig the house and go and put plastic in the drain to clog it. So that's an issue that you have to come and solve. So everybody that's buying a house and even getting a house from a contractor must make sure that the contractor or the home or the developer provides them with a defect liability period where if there's any issue, the contractor or the developer would have to come and fix it. And if they don't, you can even take them on. Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's nice. So back to the issue of a good developer. So aside identifying the defect liability period, what else can you do to ensure that you are dealing with a good developer as a buyer?
Okay. So in terms of buying anything, the onus always lies on you, the buyer, to do a lot of due diligence work, right? And sometimes if you do your due diligence well, you are looking at the background of the developer, what projects they've run. You probably visit their site to look at the quality of their work. You ask around, you ask people what's your opinion about this developer. It's not about Ghana, is that we are very secretive. That's one thing. So sometimes instead of asking somebody for help, you probably want to be like, I'm going to, hey, because I'm dying. Hey, they might kill me. So Charlie, I won't ask anybody at all. But it's always good to ask a lot of people questions, like even the good book faces in the multitude of counselors, there's safety. So you can ask people about the developer you're buying from, the pedigree. You can visit their site and look at their previous developments as well, amongst other things. Yeah.
Okay. Also, there's this assertion that people who purchase houses don't have the luxury of defining spaces. And, in this period of pandemic, I think space requirements for most house purchases has shifted a bit to take into account the fact that people work from home and other
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
So back to the issue of convenience in defining spaces. Do you think that there's an effect imposed by the pandemic to like sort of oblige people to want to build rather than buy, just so that they can put in their own things, like making spaces for to make it possible to work from home and all that?
Okay. So I don't know if the buildings have gotten bigger in London in the face of the pandemic, right? But I think when it comes to buildings, it's a science. There's a science behind it. There's a science behind the average square meterage for a two people family as a five people family, and it gets to a point where the excess space becomes superfluous, right? So in terms of functionality, you and social distancing, you probably will need a very big house to be able to be socially distant from people that you live in the house with. Now, if you live in the house with your family, I mean, that's a very difficult thing to do because social distancing becomes nearly impossible because you're around people every day, right? So really, I don't think having too much space is a solution to probably dealing with the pandemic because really there's really no need for that. Space is as a result of people's personal taste, right? What they
Well,
want
not
and everything.
okay.
Yeah. But
Not
yeah, sure.
specifically with regards to like getting bigger spaces, but
Mm-hmm.
having spaces such as maybe a home office to be able to work from home without
Mm-hmm.
any sort of distractions, making services
Mm-hmm.
such as Wi-Fi and all that's available,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
such things. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I wish I had a home office. Like I would probably would describe it by my daughter today. But yes, it comes with a need as well. So in building, one it's what you need in your house. So yes, if you need a home office, then yes, definitely get one. But not necessarily will it solve all of the problems. But if you're looking for that kind of space, and when you go to the developer and you're looking to buy, then you ask all those questions. But yeah, that's what I'll say. If you need it, yes, then go for it. If you don't need it, then you can be in my living room as I am and have your daughter's house all around it. Everybody here.
So between buying and building, which one do you think Ghana's economy favors the most?
So culturally, we are a building people. That's what we do as a people. I mean, the ratio between buying and I don't have the current stats, but I'm sure if you probably to do a random survey right now, even on this platform, the ratio between buying and building, you probably have building probably 60% more than building. So yes, so culturally, that's who we are. And when you look at the how do you call it, the effect of construction as an industry in our overall GDP, you probably look that most of them are because people are building their own homes, right? So yes, so buying really we are still yet to see better days because believe me, there are a lot of developments there that are very very empty, and if people were buying more, then the contribution would be higher and better to the overall economics of the country. But I'll probably take um, a limb and say that building probably impacts the economy more than buying as
Okay.
the people.
So in terms of jurisdiction, considering location, I'm aware that in Ghana we have some parts of Kumasi and the entire Accra under land titling system, and the other parts of the country do deeds registration. So
Yeah.
with regards to land administration, do you think that some jurisdictions in Ghana favor building more than buying? And yeah, so I'll leave it that way. Do you think some
Well,
jurisdictions favor buying more than
more
building?
than well, it depends, and I'll probably say yes and no. I think every jurisdiction has Okay, we'll probably look at the bigger areas, Greater Accra, Kumasi, Takrade. You realize that they have a very good blend of buying and building. I mean, recently I was in Takrade for some work, and I was amazed when I saw apartments coming up for and people were buying them and all those things, right? So depending on yes, so depending on where you are and the kind of culture that is there, then you probably have a fine balance between buying and building. But if you were to go to probably the hinter areas or the areas that are not really probably very much developed, then you have a more um, you have a more you have more weight on people building their houses because mind you, buying a house, the developer is looking to make money. So if I'm going to build a development somewhere in maybe find something about chalk. I don't even know where that is. But if I'm going to put up a hundred housing unit there, then I'm going to lose money. So depending on where you are, yes, the division plays a role. If you're in the bigger metropolises, then it's easier for you to have a perfect balance between buying and building. But if you're in the outskirts, you tend to build more than they buy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, so which one is more expensive, building or buying?
Hmm. Building or buying? Which one is more expensive? It's both. They're both expensive. Yeah, but because um, as as a developer, right? You always think that probably people say building houses, buying is quite expensive until you put on your contractor hat and you see some designs that are like three times, four times the price of buying a house. So it depends on what you are buying. There are houses that you build that are way cheaper than buying um, a five bed or a one bed from a developer. And the houses that you buy that are way cheaper than building a one bed in a particular area. So it depends. It depends on where you find yourself. If you're going to build a house in a mountainous area, definitely the cost is more. So it might make more sense even buying a house probably just down the mountain where land is generally flat and you don't have to put a lot of work into the foundation and stuff like that, right? So it depends on where you are, where you find yourself. But yeah, they are both expensive. They are both really expensive. Now, let me tell you why people think that there's a notion that buying is expensive. Now, if you look at a typical developer, right?
Yes. Yes.
Um, Ideally, in a more planned world, in a more what should I say? Yeah, let me just use plans so I can be very diplomatic with my statement. The government or the planning authorities go ahead of the developers, right? It's where in areas where the roads are cut out, they are tarred, the drains are done, there are good sewage systems. So it's like plug and play. You build and you plug into those systems. However, when it comes to Ghana, what developers tend to do is that because most of the places where they build are virgin land, they have to put in all those things. They have to put in the roads. They have to put in the drains, the sewage system. Sometimes even bring water and electricity, and it's a lot of cost. Now, what happens is that to give you all of those amenities and those luxuries, you would have to pay for them. Because if you're probably building your house somewhere in, I'll say, let's say you say in Dodoa, right, in a very new area, you'd have to bear the cost of putting electricity there yourself.
Yes.
And if you do the math, you realize that you'd have probably spent the same amount of money as if you had bought from a developer. So that's when developers become a bit expensive because then there's the road cost, there's the how do you call it? There's the utilities and infrastructure, and also there's also the profits because they are there to make business as well, so to make money. So yes, there's always a markup for a developer, and it makes them a bit um, expensive. But if you look at the general thing, you realize that buying and sometimes building, they are almost at the same level. Because then, if you were to factor putting your own road to your house and doing your own drains, your own storm drains and everything, you realize that you are way out of your own budget. Yeah.
Wow. So if you have a relative abroad
Mm-hmm.
who wants to build in Ghana, who wants to have a house in Ghana, would
Mm-hmm.
you advise the person to build or to buy?
Um, it really depends. It really depends. My experience with people that live abroad is that there's a portion of them that want to live the way they live in America, wherever they find themselves, right? Wherever they find themselves. So they tend to gravitate towards planned communities, right? Gated communities and all that. Please excuse me. Forgive me, right? So they tend to gravitate towards buying in planned communities because of what they are used to in the countries where they reside. Also, there are people that say, "Look, I've lived in," especially for those that live in London. They say, "Look, we've lived in box houses for so long, so in coming home, I want something very spacious." So they'd rather build their house. So it's more about understanding what the person's need is before you can advise as to whether they should buy or they should build. Right? So that would be the answer. So if I understand who you are as a person and what your idiosyncrasies, I can probably say, okay, build or buy because of my knowledge of you. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm aware that over time, people are beginning to appreciate buying properties as well. Like as with time, the rate at which people are buying homes are increasing. So I would want to know, are developers taking into consideration um, things like people's social um, beliefs? Because people factor in such things if they are to build their own houses. For example, if I'm a Muslim and I'm building, maybe I'll factor into my building somewhere for prayers, or like some of these social affiliations. So I'm just asking, is it, are developers factoring into their designs social? Are they taking into consideration social factors in their designs?
Well, I can only speak for my
Okay.
development,
All right.
and that happens to be in Apollonia. Yes, there is a huge effort being made to ensure that we are bringing all those things close to the homeowners because it's an important part of your day-to-day living, right? So be it whether you're a Christian or a Muslim or whoever you are, a Hindu or whoever you are, the effort is being made where we have spaces where people can buy and set up their mosques and their churches and extend their shrines if they want to, right? That makes them they're living very comfortable. Also, when it comes to our development, we have areas earmarked for playgrounds, water parks, clubhouses. So yeah, so as a developer, you would have to make the efforts, right? Because I know in some jurisdictions, if you are going to build in a new area, the developer will have to build schools, will have to build a playground for the state and give before you're even allowed to even build in that area. So in an ideal world, it should be the case, right? But not all developers do that. It's all about giving you your housing first, and then all the things that come after are now luxury. If you can afford it, you go and play somewhere, or you go and go to your church somewhere and all those stuff. Yeah.
Okay. So with the mindset of profit making,
Mm-hmm.
do developers sometimes make hasty constructions just because they want to make profit? Because like people have such mindsets and then they rather choose to build.
Well, I can't say no. There's always the tendency that profitability eats into a business's head, and then they try to use not cheap products, but also try and be very cost effective. So yeah, sometimes it does happen, but in a world where we are all honest to ourselves and there's integrity, the right thing is supposed to be done as against being profitable. But yeah, sometimes developers do cut corners. That's the truth. The same way people that are buying also cut corners because they want to reduce the cost of construction, right? So once there's money involved, people's minds become very, very, very different. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Uh, Talking about the time for construction,
Mm-hmm.
typically, how
Mm-hmm.
long does it take to build? Like if I'm
Oh,
to do my building myself.
it, it can take you a month to build. It can take you 20 years to build. It depends on you, right? There's no perfect time. In construction, we always say that if there's money, everything moves fast, right? Because you hear people say, "Oh, I've done my foundation. The foundation must cure." Charlie, it's because there's no money. If there's money, you can start to oversight concrete today, and tomorrow you start raising your block work, right? So it's more about you. Also, if you are building a very elaborate house, definitely will take and that's the problem where you see a lot of houses being um, still being under construction in this country because people as young as myself who are probably building their first home will not start with something very possible to build, but they want to build a very big house. So you start and realize that Charlie, the thing it's not as easy as we thought it was, and then it goes somewhere. So if you're building something very small, you can build within a short possible time. If you have the money, also you can build fast. So yeah, so between a month and 20 years to even 100 years, it depends on you. It can take that long. Yeah.
So how flexible are developers in um, making such options available for people to probably start with small and then
Mhm.
expand when they have the means to?
Well, I think developers are very flexible. I mean, if in all developments where I've worked, there's always the option of having a starter home where a new couple walks in and they can probably start from a one bed and then there's enough space to expand to a two or a three. So developers have always done that because it's always easier to get people to buy at lower price points, right? And then later they get to expand. But then also there's the issue of the preference of the buyer as well. People always say that Ghanaians we have champagne taste in Coca-Cola wallets. So Charlie, you can start from a one bed, but the Ghana man in you or the Ghana man will say, no, 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 no. I rather do a three bed to start with, and you really can afford it. But every developer makes provisions for people to start small. And if we could get used to starting small and scaling up, our lives become very easier. Right? Yeah.
Okay, so my last two questions. What advice would you give to someone who wants to build a house?
What advice would I give someone who wants to build a
Someone,
house?
yes.
Well, so one, if you're a young person, which I believe majority of the people here are very young people, they are looking to build a house. I would always say that start small. It will not be your only home. That's the truth about life, right? The truth is, most of us grew up in very big houses, so we grew up at the point where our parents had gone through life and they built their big house, but you didn't see how they started. So in our mind, all we know is that we must build big houses. But the truth is that you cut your coat according to your size,
Yeah.
or according to your pocket. You don't look at there is no rush in life. There's no competition. There's one thing that I learned very early in my life from my mentors. I look, you are not in competition with anybody. Do what you can afford. Do what fits your pocket. So it's always good to start small and then scale up. Even if you have 100 by 100 plot, there's no need for you to fill that entire house with a 7 bedroom house that will take you your entire life to build, and you can only move in at retirement, right? But you can start with a 2 bed, neatly positioned on the plot. Now, life always gets better, right? Life always gets better. That's what I believe. So as you work, you get promotions, more money comes, there are a few windfalls here and there. You save up and then you begin to now open your house small, small. Also, if you have the land, don't build on the entire land because God is no longer producing land. God has finished producing land. He's done, right? He's not producing land anymore. So if you have 100 by 100, in probably what is a bush today, 20 years from now, it's going to be a very nice community. Now, you can always make money from that extra that plot. So if you have 100 by 70, you can build on a 50 by 70, save the other one for a future development, or hold on to it for value appreciation, and then sell later in life, or build some apartments and rent out, because there will always be a housing problem. People will always need shelter. That is why Henry Maslow said the first thing people need is shelter. It's an underlying need. You would always need it. So if you have that big land, don't just you can build a very beautiful 3 bedroom story building on a 50 by 70, on a 60 by 40. It is possible. There's no need for you to go and split. However, if you are from a rich family and you're a trust fund baby and your friends have left you millions of dollars, I would advise not to build a big house. But if you want to, I mean, it's your call. But my advice is that start small, be wise in your construction, be cost effective, and then scale up from there. Yeah.
Oh, very interesting advice. And my last question, what advice would you give
Sure.
people who want to buy? This was the first one was for people who want to build. Now, what advice would you give people who want to
Okay.
buy?
So if you want to buy, right, my advice is that always keep your eyes peeled, right? Because the thing is that the onus is on you. And if you're buying anything, to do your due diligence. Make sure that you are cross-checking everything. If you are not um, well versed in legal grammar, like I am, get a lawyer friend to look through things for you and ask all the questions, right? So that's the most important thing. Secondly, also ensure that the developer you're buying from or the person building has all the requisite documents you need, from the land titles to the building permits to all those things, because they come a long way. Because you might be there and then they'll come and say, this house didn't have a permit when it was built. It becomes a headache for you. And if they want to be very stubborn, they can be stubborn, right? Also, always seek the advice of your friends that are experts, right? So if I remember there was one time when I was with Rehoboth, there was this one who was going to buy a house, and she came with an architect who was a friend, because she had no idea what went into a building. So the guy had to come and assess, was measuring walls and all those things. It helps, right? It helps. If I have a friend that if I want to do anything land, right, I'll go to her and say, "Hi, D, I want to buy land. Can you check it out for me?" So ask people, talk to people, and also do a lot of research. I mean, we are in an age where information is free, right? So do a lot of research and just be sure you're buying from the right person. That's all.
Oh, thank you so much,
Yeah.
Felati. This has been a very informative session. Personally, I've learned a lot because I didn't know about things like the defect liability period, and um, you've given very good advice about building in terms of starting small, no competition,
Mhm.
doing due diligence, and asking all the questions.
Yeah.
This has been a very informative session. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We'll now move to the questions from the audience. So I'll be reading the questions from the chat,
Okay.
starting from the very first question um, from Edith Mensah. She's
Hi, Edith.
asking, she's asking, how do I get a mortgage from a financial institution if I do not have collateral?
Okay, so when it comes to mortgages, right? You don't need to have collateral to get a mortgage. The house you are buying is the collateral. Okay, so this is how it works. If you buy a house through mortgage, the deeds of the house goes to the mortgage. It's in the name of you and the mortgage company. Now the mortgage company keeps it, right? When you're done paying for your house, they transfer it, but they take their name off and give your property back to you. So the collateral on that mortgage is the house or the land you are buying. So you don't need collateral to go for a mortgage. What you need is to ensure that you have your how do you call it, your pay slips intact. You have um, your bank statements that show your source of funds and how funds are moving out of your account, your ability to repay your the mortgage in terms of your monthly installments. That's what they will look out for. But the collateral is the house you are buying, and that is why they always come and do their valuation, because they want to be sure that the house you are buying is equal to the value at which it's being sold for you as well, because they're also vested in the property as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Sir Lassie. It is. I hope your question was well answered. The next question is from Edem Ativo. Edem is saying, please, what do you say to the idea of buying a plot of land inside the estate, but building it yourself? Because I want to avoid the developer's profit markup, but I also want to enjoy the advantages of living in a gated and well-planned community.
Okay, great. So there are developers that offer service plots or gated communities where you can buy your land and then build your house. That's an option. So if that is what you're looking for, Apollonia is one, Airport Hills is one, Trasaco is one, Shandonia is one. They offer service plots within a gated setup, so you can always buy and then build yourself. As to avoiding the developer's markup, I hope you don't say you want to be your own foreman as well, because next thing you know, you are destroying your own house. So avoid the developer's markup, but also get a professional to build for you. In Ghana, everybody wants to be everything, but I've learned that it's not always the best way to do things. So avoid the markup, yes, but also make sure you're paying somebody who knows what they are doing to build your house for you. Right?
So do the developers usually give maybe some specific requirements of how they expect buildings and such service plots to be?
Yes. So that depends on the developer. Some developers
Okay.
are very flexible, where they allow you to do what you want to. But if you go to a very typical gated or service plot community, there are restrictions. There are height restrictions. Design wise, you're allowed to build whatever you want to build, but they will vet. They have committees that vet the structural. There are committees that vet the structural integrity of the building and everything. So yes, it's
Yeah, because this question just came out because I'm just imagining someone building a compound house on a service plot in a gated community. Like, I wonder how it will fit within.
well. So it depends on it depends on the on the development, but sometimes plots in gated communities are quite expensive. So before you build a compound house, so there's some developments where they say, okay, the land you are buying is for one house and one house only, and you cannot go above a certain height restriction or floor restriction. So it's a set in stone. So if you buy the plot, you can only build one house, and you can only go maybe ground floor and first floor. It's a set. You cannot do an apartment style, but you cannot do a compound house. But the developers are also very flexible. But rather, the more prime and pristine the development, the stricter and tighter the restrictions. Yeah.
So, wouldn't it have an effect on cost? For example, if maybe I don't have so much money to build according to the specs of this developer, and I'm getting a service plot
Mm-hmm.
from the
Mm-hmm.
developer, won't it kind of restrict some people from getting service plots from such people, such developers?
No, it shouldn't, because you're not restricted as to what kind of, they don't tell you what kind of house to build or impose a design style on you, right? You're allowed to build whatever you want to build. They only have height restrictions in some developments,
Okay.
and also
So,
sometimes they also have the land use ratio as well, as to the ratio between where you can build and the amount of space you have to leave around you as well. So they don't restrict you on your design. So you can buy a service plot and start with your two bedroom. But also, Charlie, if you go to Airport Hills and you see the houses there, and you want to start, you advise yourself. So that's how it works.
okay. My next question is from Abigail Owusu. He's saying, wouldn't it be more expensive overall if you were to start with a small building and to keep expanding the house as your family grows, as compared with going straight for something like a 3-bedroom house, regardless of how
Okay.
long it will take to build that house?
Okay. So you know that the longer it takes, the more cost you incur. If you are aware, just somewhere last year, a ton of iron rods was selling for 3,005. This year it's gone to 5,350 for a ton. Just last 2 weeks, Gasem increased their prices of cement. So the longer you take, the more cost you will incur, right? However, if you, I mean, it's always good to plan it. So look, I want to build a 10-bedroom house eventually, right? I'm starting with a 2-bed. You are adding on. So based on what you tell your architect that my goal is to have a 5-bedroom house in 10 years. So I want to start with a 2-bed, and then I can add on. It will be best in such a way that it doesn't cost you, because if it takes you the same 5 years to finish, right? The benefit of this is this: you have a 2-bed you are living in at the moment, and you are adding on.
Yeah,
The other side is that you are building, you don't have you are still renting,
yeah,
right? And then you are still waiting for that 5 years, and it is, so now you're paying rent and then paying all the price
yeah.
hikes that come with the with the building materials. So it's always good to start small. There's nothing that stops you from starting small and increasing as you go on. But if you have the money or you have the time to wait for 3 years or 2 years to finish building your big 3-bedroom house or 4-bedroom house, then look, you can, or maybe you are living in a family house, you're not paying rent, then go at it. But if you're looking for somewhere to live, start small and then scale up.
Oh, okay, thank you. The next question is from Ofusua Donko. She's asking, buying an apartment in a story apartment,
Mm-hmm.
living on the ground floor and on the
Mm-hmm.
top floor, which is
Mm-hmm.
advised? So she's asking, which one do you advise? Buying an apartment in a story apartment. If you're buying an
Mm-hmm.
apartment in a story apartment,
Mm-hmm.
you advise to live on the ground floor or on the top floor?
Opera, it depends on you. Me personally, I'll probably try and be in between, on the ground floor, the top floor. But if it's a 5-story apartment, I have to climb stairs to get to the fifth floor. It's a lot of work for me, right? Sometimes being on the ground floor is also not as secured as you would think it would be, because you're the first point for everybody to see. But if it's a secured community, it's your personal preference. It's your personal preference. If it's a 5-floor apartment, you want to live on the top floor, you enjoy walking, climbing stairs every day, Charlie, more grease to your elbow.
Yeah, I think it's a personal choice. I mean, people like to be on top floor so that they can maybe have some nice views. People like to be on the ground floor because they don't want to have any issues with maybe the elevator, or they don't want
Mm-hmm.
to be climbing
Ellie, what?
stairs.
Ellie, what? No, no, no,
Elevator, maybe
no,
if there's an issue with it or something,
no.
like in
How
a
many
typical
apartments do you don't have an
apartment.
elevator? You have to climb stairs.
Yes.
Right? And there are no views in Ghana to look at. At the top floor, the view is from bush somewhere. Charlie, what is like for you? Just think
But
it.
I think some apartments, like, oh, how do you call it? The one close to Accra Mall.
Oh,
Uh,
Bellagio.
yeah, some of they have
Oh,
really nice.
okay, okay, yeah. Oh, yeah. But I thought we weren't dealing with Bellagio, talking about normal
Ah,
apartment. But yes, by all means, you can afford a Bellagio. Yeah, there are elevators.
yeah,
Whether you're you can even go for the penthouse and be there.
yeah. Um, the next question is from Kelasi Ahedo,
Okay.
and Kelasi is asking, will it be okay to get a big space and later do partitions to create rooms, especially when the family size is getting bigger?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So one thing about construction is that the cost is per square meter, right? So the bigger the space, the more the cost. Okay. The bigger the space, the more the cost in tiling, the cost in plastering, in painting. So if you really, really don't need that big space to start with, and it's for future use. You don't know how big the family can become. You don't know how small it will be, and what we don't know is that every space that we have unused in our houses actually cost to us because you've sunk in money there and it's not generating any return for you. If somebody was using it, then oh yeah, somebody lives in the house, right? So if you really don't need the space, you don't have to go for a big space and then later partition it, right? You can start still the small way and then later expand and go that way because maybe the cost of finishing that big space will probably will be difficult for you because then you have to tile it, you have to paint it, you have, and all those things. Yeah.
Okay. Our next question is from Adam Ativo.
Mm-hmm.
And just a second. Adam is asking, how do I know which real estate company is trustworthy to deal with?
Mm-hmm.
For instance, I want to be sure I won't have issues with the land later.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you can always request for the land title certificate and then run your own search just to be sure that the land is actually in their name or they have the right to build on the land that they are building on, right? So that's basically the first step. Also, you can always seek advice from other people. You can seek advice from the mortgage banks that you're buying from and ask them which guys you think are more credible to do business with. You can seek advice from friends, like if McAfee is your friend, you can call and say, McAfee, you're the person in the build in the real estate space. I want to buy a house. Who do I speak to? Or if you have nobody, I can always recommend somebody for you. You can always see me later, and I'll recommend a plug that will tell you who to deal with and who not to deal with. And that one, the whatever she tells you is as good as gold. So if you don't have anybody, you can hit me up later and then I'll direct someone that can advise you on that. I can see though, it's not free.
So how available? Are you always available?
I am not always available, but I'm available. So I mean, if you need me, I am there. I'll respond.
Okay. Our next question is from Pamela.
Okay. Hi, Pamela.
Pamela, Pamela is asking, so with houses being sold, do they have a fixed price or it changes over time?
Okay, so I'll probably start from where I'll probably start with the elephant in the room. Why developers quote in dollars?
Yes.
It's a question I hear every time, right?
Yes.
And the reason most developers quote in dollars is to address the question Pamela asked, to have the price fixed over a period of time. If you're an economics person, right? I'm not an economics person, but the lesson I know is that our currency is not very stable,
Yeah.
and the rate of depreciation is quite fast and high, right? And one CD today is not one CD tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So in order to stop or curb the behavior of always increasing your prices, developers tend to quote in dollars for indexing, not to take the money in dollars. And if you are willing to pay, then the exchange rate applies to you, right? Because within the now we also know that the buildings are built over a period of time.
Yes.
Now, by the time they start building your house in January and they're probably done in December, cement prices have gone up and all those things. And I mean, it becomes a problem. And so they try and index in dollar just to keep their prices fixed. So yes, developers try to keep their prices fixed for as long as they can, as long as it makes business sense for them. However, if the dynamics become unfavorable and they have to change their prices, they will change, but they don't change as often as and also the issue of the basic demand and supply economics 101 comes to play. The more demand there is,
The price.
prices, yes, exactly. So it's in the perfect capitalist system. That's how it works. But yes, ideally they keep the prices fixed for a while until they have to change it. Yeah.
Yeah. And just to add a little to what Selassie said, real estate is one asset that never depreciates. It keeps
Exactly.
appreciating. So
It
it's
is
actually a hedge against
inflation.
fluctuations in
Yeah.
currency. And so that is why most developers will just peg their prices in dollars just to avoid such depreciation. The next question is from Eric De Yinka. He's
Okay.
saying that he's asking, can I sue a developer if I base my decision on buying a property on amenities promised or advertised, yet it never comes to fruition?
Yes, I mean it's within your right to demand what you believe has been sold to you, right? So if but the tricky part is that a developer can always say that it's going to come. They are saying they'll one and say, oh yes, we promised them we are going to do it, right? And once they say they're going to do it, that means that they're going to do it. It might not be as soon as you want it, right? So yes, you can go to court. You can, if they say they're not going to do it, then you can probably go and sue them. But sometimes the cost involved. I'm sure if you probably use that money to build the clubhouse yourself, you'd have saved you all the headaches, because then you go and hire a lawyer, and then the case can drag forever. So you can sue them, yes, but I advise you not to, because then you probably just be fighting a fruitless battle. But yeah, sure.
Okay, the next question is from Kwame Ofori Amwabediako. He's
Okay.
asking, how fast did you build your personal house, if you have?
So I have a very small house. I live by my own principles. I start small. Right? So I have a 2 bedroom house, and even that was already an existing structure that we had to remodel. And then when we got the land, it was already on it, so we had to remodel, and that even took me probably say like 4 to 5 months.
Mm,
Yeah, and I even had
that's
to go and
five
take a
months.
loan. Yeah, I even had to go and take a loan to finish it. So it tells you a lot that even building small is not that cheap, right?
Yes.
So yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. The next question is from Charles Smith Mensa.
Okay, hi Charles.
He's asking, is buying off plan always cheaper?
No, it's not always cheaper. Sometimes when developers are new and they are starting, yes, they can offer you cheaper prices for buying off plan, because you are imposing some kind of trust in them, and probably trying to reciprocate and say thank you. They say, okay, look, because you have faith in us, even when we are just bare bush, would give to you at this price. However, if the developer has one phase done and they're opening up a new phase, definitely will not be cheaper buying an off-plan house. What you will probably get is that they probably have a longer payment plan, because they haven't yet started building, right? So you can probably see if they're going to take 2 years to start to build, then you have probably 2 years to pay for your house. But then they start building and reduce the time frame, reduces. But it's not always cheap to buy off plan. I mean, no, it's not always cheap.
Our next question is from Bernard Affle. Bernard is saying, most of the estate developers use the land as a collateral for a mortgage before developing, i.e., putting up the building. In the instance that the mortgage has not been discharged,
Mhm.
can a buyer of a building again use the house for a mortgage?
No, you can't, because it's already the land is already in the name of another bank, right? And there's a legal term for it. I forgot it. But no. So usually, if a developer has taken a loan on their land, right, and they sell the property to you, they usually have to get a release on that portion of the land from whoever they took the loan from, and then transfer that land to you, so you can go ahead and use it. Yes. So yeah.
Yeah, just to add a little to what Salah said, I know that
Mhm.
mortgages are like according to the Mortgages Act, mortgages are an encumbrance on a property. So,
So
and
legal,
not
legal
right.
going on here.
It's not right to sell properties that are encumbered. So, but if the buyer is happy to buy an encumbered property, knowing that there's an encumbrance on the property, he can go ahead. But mortgages in itself form an encumbrance on the property. So you are selling off an encumbered property, which is not right. You need to disclose all of such information to the buyer. So, moving on to the next question. Samuel Asaridria is asking, how do I invest in the real estate industry?
How do you invest? Okay, so I think people always use the term investment loosely, for lack of a better word, and think that it's all about putting money into the like financing real estate. But you can invest in different areas, right? You can invest in the area where you finance a building or finance a development and get a return. You can invest in an area where you provide services for the developer, maybe probably offer to sell units for them, and then you get your returns in terms of commissions and stuff. So there are various ways in which you can invest. If I understand this somewhat, right, he's probably thinking about how to put money into a development. There are always options. Recently, I think somewhere last year, I heard of a model where they started doing some crowdfunding for development. That's all. That's one thing you can do. You can probably go to. I think it's called co-funding or something. Yeah, co-funding. I think it's quite big in Nigeria now, and they're trying to bring it to Ghana. So yeah, that's one aspect. That's it's not a REIT. It's more like crowdfunding. So it's not a REIT. It's crowdfunding, and there's also the REIT where you can also do. And in other jurisdictions, there are companies that actually invest in real estate where they have funds where people actually people buy into, and then they have a period of holding for a while, and then they sell off, and then they make their return over a longer period. One thing about real estate is that it is not a quick get money kind of investment. You have to wait. It's a lot of patient capital. Real estate is not so if the money is not patient, then probably try and get a government bond or treasury bond and buy and get your returns in shorter time. Because real estate, once you put it in, even sometimes you can probably model a 5-year plan for your development, and it might not even go according to plan. So you need to be very patient when it comes to real estate. In some jurisdictions, if you invest in a real estate venture, your holding period is 5 years. It means that 5 years before you can actually come and start asking for money and all those things. So yeah, it is not a very patient thing. It is not a get rich quick thing as people would think it is. Right? It is a lot of pain and hassle. So yeah, if you have the patience, sure, you can always invest in it. Yeah.
And also, I think typically in Ghana, real estate investments are mainly primary investments where it's mainly like you're investing directly. But exactly, like in other countries, like most of the advanced countries, like America and the rest, they do REITs and the rest, where it's more of real estate in the secondary market. And with those ones, you can get your money quicker because it's more liquid than the direct investment here in Ghana. So in Ghana, you need to be patient a lot, just as Selassie say, you have to be very patient.
It's a lot of patience. Look, you'll be surprised if you get close to people, you ask them, people that invest in development, right? And they start telling their stories, you'll be like, wow. So the money hasn't come yet. It's for how many years now? 5 years? Yeah, that's how it works. It's a really patient game. You have to be patient.
Very true. Yeah. Very true. But it's also long lasting.
It is long lasting. Yeah. It is long lasting.
Yeah. The next question is from Bernard Affle. He's asking, in the event that a mortgage defaults, a mortgagee defaults in paying off his or her mortgage, what's the best remedy that is available to him or her?
The best remedy. Charlie, best remedy is go to talk to the people and tell them what you're going to and say, I need more time. Because I mean, it's their business, right? And you paying your mortgage payment is what they use to also survive. So if you default, they have the right to foreclose on your house and then try and receive their money. But I mean, every institution is a human institution. So I think if you're upfront with them, they can always find a way of restructuring. Because I know loans are restructured all the time. Because most the thing is that it will also be a lot of work for the company to take the house and try and resell. So I'm sure if they can structure something for you and make you continue paying your mortgages, they'll be able to do it for you. So just talk to them and then see what they can also do for you. But if you default, I think they give you. I mean, I think there's a period of normal time if you default,
I think they normally give some grace period.
Yeah, they give
So like
some
say,
warnings. Yeah,
yeah,
some warnings and stuff. Yeah,
you can always negotiate.
yeah. Just go and talk. Just go and beg, beg. Yeah, yeah.
The next question is from Naotu. Naotu is asking, looking at the country's demographics and the average
Mhm,
income of citizens, do
mhm.
you think the prices of real estate in Ghana are true reflections of their actual value? And are the developers truly meeting the needs?
Now this is a very interesting question. I could probably write a whole thesis on this because I have my personal views, right? Yes and no, right? Some developers don't meet the standards that they are charged for, and because there is no regulation in the country in terms of how you regulate developers, right? People are allowed to price how they want to price, even if they're not offering what they have to offer. I'm a firm believer that there must be some form of regulation where you can tell the difference between the different kinds of developers. So they are categorized according to their level of infrastructure and what they give you. So if you're buying a house from maybe McCaffrey Development, it's a category A developer. You know that when you're going to buy from they must have roads, they must have gutters, and this is the price point where they can start from. If you're buying from Salati Development, who's probably in the category C, then this is what we give you. This is the price point. That way, it can be controlled. But right now, there's no control. Everybody builds and they say, oh, I mean, it's a typical example. It's a development that we are working on with somebody, and they're pricing they're pricing in Ghana cities, right? And a very nice development. Somebody also just started building behind them. And the person is like, oh, but this area, I know the developer opposite me, which is probably maybe Rehoboth, is selling the same house for $140,000. So me too, I'm going at 140. Meanwhile, the road to the place is bad. It's not a gated community. There are no drains. I mean, there's no recreational activity. But if there was some form of categorization or there's some way of them controlling how developers price, then we could have that perfect sense of where people don't just get up and just mention prices. But that's not the case in this country. Some developers do provide the value to which they are giving you and you are paying for. There are developers that do that, but majority unfortunately don't do that. That's what I believe. Majority don't give you value for your money. It's because there's no regulation. Everybody
Yeah.
gets away with murder. Yeah, so that's it.
I know there's this kind of professional body, grader,
Grader.
Ghana. Do
So
they regulate such things?
no, Grader is a peer group.
Oh,
It's not backed by law. So Grader is an association of developers, and you cannot have the same people give themselves rules. It's impossible. I mean, it's very impossible, right? It's a peer group, so usually they don't have the mandate to stop developers from doing things or not doing things. No, it's just an organization like Seek International. Yeah, that's how it works. Yeah.
but do developers have anything to do with GHIS?
GHIS, hmm. GHIS, no. Mainly the professionals that get their certification from GHIS, but developers in this country, I probably say it's a very gray area. Really, they go to who they want to go to. It's not
Yeah,
compulsory for the developer to even join Grader. It's not compulsory. You
yeah,
can
yeah,
be
yeah.
there and not be part of Grader. It's not compulsory. But these things have to be enacted in law. where and I read things and hear things about some great reforms going to come to the housing sector. They started with this Ghana Real Estate Act, looking to control the agent side of the business. So hopefully, we will get there. Hopefully, but I'm
Yeah,
sure it's
we'll
baby
get
steps,
there.
one step at a time, and then we'll probably get there. Yeah.
Yeah. Next question is from Bernard again. Bernard is asking, I know of estate companies that price their land far below what is expected in
Mhm.
particular areas. What informs such quotations? And what should a buyer look out for in circumstances like that?
Okay. So if you look at the pricing model of most development or land selling companies, it's more geographical. So the price is different in different geographical areas. Um, the cheaper lands you realize that are probably towards the outskirts of town, right? Where really there is no infra being put in. There's no work being put in. So you talk about areas like Tripoli, talk about areas like after Afienia, towards Shy Hills. I mean, on those areas. Really, the only way people get there is if the price is cheap and the lands are bought for cheap. They don't have to put in any infrastructure. They just have to demarcate the plots and sell to you. And because they're selling in large numbers, I mean, they can sell it for cheap and still make their money because there's no infra being put in. However, if you're coming closer to town, then the price begins to change. So the further you are away from city life, the cheaper the price. The closer you are getting to city life, the the higher the price. And so as you come towards cantonment and airport and bridge, and then when they mention the price, you say, okay, I'm going to sell my liver. So I'm trying to buy one. Yeah, yeah. So yeah. So it's more of the geographical and the locations, the access to amenities and all those things. Yeah.
Yeah. Our next question is from Naotu. Naotu is
Hi
asking,
now.
looking at the country's demographics and the average income of citizens, do
Mm-hmm.
you think the prices? Oh, I think that's what you
I
just
think
answered.
Freddie
Yeah,
has said that. Yeah.
yeah, that's what you just answered. Sorry. The next one is from Kelasi Ahedo. He's asking, during the defect liability period, do you have to pay or buy a product when broken or damaged?
It depends on what the defect liability period or what the developer classifies as defects, right? And that's why it's always important for you to be clear on the interpretations of whatever is listed in your lease or your sales and purchase agreement. Some developers will say your defect it covers appliances and fittings and all those things, right? So if the handle of your door gets broken, you call estate management and then they come and resolve it for you. Some developers will say, sorry, the defect only covers structural damages. So unless there's a big gaping crack in your wall, it's not a defect. Unless there's some crazy leakages coming from your roof, it's not a defect. If you break your door handle, that one is your own cost. It means that you broke it yourself, too much power, right? If your shower gets spoiled, it's your. So it depends on what the developer classifies as defect. It must always be clear on what it covers, so that you don't go and say, oh, I didn't know, I didn't know, I didn't know. That becomes a problem.
Uh, I think that was the last question. We'll give
Okay, fine.
a few minutes to see if there will be any more questions, and then we'll bring the session to an end. So we'll wait for a
Okay.
while. And you are replying.
learning something new. Yeah.
Hi, Makafui.
Hello.
Yeah,
Hello.
so, yeah, so I think we can begin to wrap up now. Yeah, and the
Okay.
session has been recorded, so we'll share it with everybody.
Thank you, everybody, for joining. It's been a very interactive session. Thank you so much, Selassie. I've learned a lot from you today, and I believe our audience have also learned a lot. It's been a very, very educative session. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and expertise with us at no cost at all. Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much. For those of you who are still here, I would like to encourage you to follow Seek International via the various social media platforms. You can see them in the chat. You can see the links in the chat. You just click on them. Follow Seek International for more sessions like this. Follow Seek International on Instagram, on Twitter, on YouTube. Subscribe to Seek International's YouTube channel, and we'll be organizing more of such sessions. So please follow Seek International. And thank you all once again for joining. We really appreciate it. We hope you learned so much. Thank you and have a very good day.
Thank you too.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.